the housekeeping. Take your phones out, turn them on silent. Mine just did mine. I'm glad to see everybody here made it, and only 2 people that I know went to Joe's Palm Room, but that's okay. Place your meal ticket on if you're having lunch, place your meal ticket so you can get served. And now for the rest of the story. J. Michael Erler passed away last Thursday, September 1st, at the age of 99. He joined our club in January of 1967, over 55 years ago, and was a member of the 1912 Society and a Paul Harris Fellow Plus 2. At Mike's insistence, there will be no service or visitation. If you want to share memories or condolences, please send an email to mikesfinalflight@gmail.com. And there's a link to the full obituary in Sparks. Please join me in a moment of silence in his memory. Providing our invocation today is Neville Blakemore, Chairman of LCA Incorporated and your club director. Welcome, Neville.
I want to read a prayer from Charles de Foucauld. He was born in 1858 to 1916. He was a French soldier, an explorer, a geographer, an ethnographer, a Catholic priest, and a hermit who lived among the Tuareg people in Sahara and Algeria. I stumbled upon his prayer in my own reflections and readings in prayer, and the name of it is Prayer of Abandonment. I abandon myself to your hands. Do with me what you will. Whatever you may do, I thank you. I am ready for all. I accept all. Let only your will be done in me and in all your creatures. I wish no more than this, O Lord. Into your hands I commend my soul. I offer it with you. I offer to you with all the love of my heart, for I love you, Lord, and so need to give myself to you, to surrender myself to your hands without reserve and with boundless confidence, for you are my Father. Amen.
Thank you, Neville. And now for our pledge in four-way test is Vice President of your club, Barbara Sexton Smith, Chief Rewirement Officer of BSS Enterprises, and Paul Harris Fellow plus a whole lot, a handful, 5. Thank you, Barbara.
All right. Thank you, Walt. Fellow Rotarians and honored guests, will you please join me in unison now as we say our Pledge of Allegiance and recite the four-way test.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now, in all we think, feel, say, and do, the four-way test.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Barbara, and y'all be seated, please. First of all, if you're Barbara and Neville, just keep standing. If you're a member of the Rotary Board, Rotary Fund Board, please stand to be recognized at this time. Here are a few of us have done that, so welcome. These are the folks that help run your club, so thank them. Now it's time to welcome our guests. It's always a pleasure to do that. Rotarians, please take this time to introduce yourself first, then your guest. Guests, please stand to be recognized when your name is called.
President Wald, hi, how are you doing? Greg Braun. My guest today is Mark Jones. Mark, follow me on this. Mark works at AEP. He's been a top seller for the past 2 years, every quarter. Before that, he went to U of L, graduated a year early. But here's the kicker. Before that, he was one of our Louisville Western Rotary Scholarship recipients. So he's what all the fundraising and all the networking and he told me this week he wants to start coming to meetings, so I'm just going to bring him to every meeting. So please get a chance to meet him. He's a great kid. And again, this is the stuff that we've been working for. So, Mark Jones.
Welcome, Mark, and thank you, Greg.
President Walt, I'm Henry Keene. I have a guest today who also happens to be my son. This is a totally unexpected visit from California, or from Florida, where he lives, Jupiter, Florida. He's a pilot, and coincidentally, his name is Henry Keene.
The two Henrys, welcome, glad you're here.
President Walt, my guest is Kara Mackey, who is with the Mayor's Office, Director of Special Events. World Fest this weekend is her big baby, so she's breathing a sigh of relief. And which most of you, who you will hear from a little later.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you for being. I see somebody has a big smile on their face. I guess can't wipe it off. I hope it went well. You had great weather, good turnout, and things went well. All right.
President Walt, I'm Fred Cowan. My guest today is Courtney Evans, and please, Courtney. Courtney is the Director of Advancement for Jewish Family and Career Services, and she's also a returned Peace Corps volunteer from Ecuador, who is part of our Partnering for Peace program. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. And for those of y'all don't know it, Fred is a returning Peace Corps volunteer, and you served when and where?
I hope I returned already.
You returned. I thought that's what, anyway.
It was a long
It was a long time ago. All right.
Ethiopia.
Ethiopia, thank you.
President Walt, my name is Mark Holman, and my guest is Tab Ormsby. And Tab is also a very good friend of mine. She is architect at Booker Design Collaborative, which coincidentally is doing the design work at the Goodwill Opportunity Campus in West Louisville.
Thank you, welcome.
Well, Doug Scott, hello fellow Rotarians. Today with us we have Melissa Holtz. Melissa runs everything for Origin Park. Specifically, she is the director of our manager of operations. And then also with Origin Park today, actually she works for the marketing company. Caitlin Lynn is here with us today as well.
Thank you, and welcome.
Hello, President Walt, Delene Taylor, Executive Director of the club. And I'd like to welcome Joan. Is it Hanat or Hanat?
However you want to say it. The second way is the correct pronunciation.
Okay, so Joan is the CEO, founder and CEO of the Soma Institute in Chicago and has recently moved to Louisville, so please make her feel welcome.
You know, all our guests are potential Rotary members, so if you're interested in joining Rotary, my buddy Craig Sherman, I saw him, there he is, Craig is back here. His Rotary table is right up here when the meeting's over, particularly if I forget to say it, Craig will hit me over the head. Come see Craig and become a Rotarian. Glad you're here. Now, just want to share a quick story before we get Gene up here to the mic. The impact our club has had. So we have Mark Jones here. Mark is one of our Rotary Honors Scholars recipients and things like that. But we do things around the world too. So our club has an impact on a global scale as a part of Victoria WASH, W-A-S-H grant. We're able to provide water for these kids in Rasinga Island, Kenya with clean water. This is what Rotary does, and you ought to be proud of what Rotary does. So thank you. And now I'm happy to turn the podium over to today's announcer, immediate past president Gene West, and one of the best darn past presidents we've ever had. Owner and producer of Faces West Productions, chair of the Rotary Fund Board of Louisville, and Paul Harris Fellow +1. Welcome back, Gene, and I think a birthday's happened since the last time you were here. Happy birthday, too, Gene. Yay!
Thank you, President Walt. All right, strap in. We got a lot of announcements. You might even want to take notes. Please register to play in our golf shamble at Glen Oaks Country Club September 26th. Not too late to sponsor. Details in Sparks. And we have several Rotarians who were in the news. Congratulations to Alyssa Gray, who will take over as CEO of the Kentucky Humane Society in April. Angie Bailey presented a session called Imposters Wanted at this week's 38th annual KYSHRN conference. That's the Kentucky Society for Human Relations Management. Is that right? Something like that?
Yeah. Human resource management.
Human Resource Management. There you go. Congratulations, Angie. Rick Smith was recently in Washington, D.C. to participate in the American Council on Education, Mental Health in Higher Education Roundtable. Dr. Sawani Jett, CEO of Park Duval Community Health Center, discussed minority mental health and gun violence issues post-COVID with Damon Cobble of the Minority Mental Health Project. And you can see the full video on YouTube. Our club was very visible at the recent Leadership Louisville luncheon. Although we couldn't get everybody together for a picture, there were at least 30 club members in attendance. So congratulations to Rotarian Cynthia Napak and the LLC team for another fantastic event. It really was. Alan Houston was the guest speaker, and it was a phenomenal event. And thank you to the sponsors who were represented among our members. Please consider volunteering some of your time and expertise to support our signature service project, mentoring Rotary Honor Scholars at Western High School, Iroquois High School, and the Western High School students attending early college at Jefferson Southwest Campus this year. The schedule and contact information listed in Sparks. We are excited to team up with the Metro United Way to host the Racial Wealth Gap Simulation in place of our regular meeting on September 22nd. That's September 22nd, 2 weeks from now. Rotarian Steve Jester will be hosting us at Second Presbyterian on Brownsboro Road. Now, this will be a longer than normal meeting. So it's from 11 to 1. So please feel free to arrive at 10:30 for networking and watch for an email and more information with lunch details and an RSVP link. So, scroll down. And finally, the next session of Rotary University will follow our meeting at Joe's Palm Room. So please RSVP if you plan to attend. Now, as chair of the Rotary Fund, it's my job to be a steward of the contributions that you make that fund our many projects, from the international projects like the water project that Walt just mentioned, to our local projects enriching students' lives like the Rotary Honors Scholars. This is going to continue, and what I'd like to do is to start including you on our fund donation. So we're starting with Sponsor for Success. I'd like to ask Butch Mosby and Kara Mackey to come forward, please. Now, Butch was a speaker, I believe last year or so. He spoke to our club and talked to us about his housing project and his scholarship project for students, and he's going to tell you a little bit about that. So, we will acknowledge, now in its 110th year, the Rotary Club of Louisville is committed to service with areas of focus that promote peace, fight disease, provide clean water, sanitation, and hygiene, save mothers and children, support education, grow local economies, and protect the environment. The Rotary Club of Louisville is pleased to award Sponsor for Success a grant in the amount of $3,000 for its student scholarship program. Where's the check? Can you tell us a bit about Sponsor for Success? Yes.
Thank you all for the check, Jean, and also thank you for inviting us back to the Rotary Club. This is my second time around, actually our second time around. So I grew up in the west end of Louisville, Kentucky, and I was fortunate enough to have people who supported me along my journey to what I consider somewhat of a success. And so I was a football player, and the way that I got out of the neighborhood was to get a scholarship to play football at Murray State University, which ended up taking me to Germany to play professionally, and then coming back to work in corporate America.
And so I retired from corporate America now because I was fortunate enough to be a part of a exit strategy of a company that sold. And so I wanted to invest back into the community that raised me, which is the West End of Louisville. And when I came back after 25 years, I saw that the area had deteriorated and there was a lot of help that was needed. And so I started Sponsor for Success, whose mission is to improve the living and economic conditions of people living in the West End, but we're primarily focused on helping students stay on the path towards success by reducing the financial barriers and challenges. So, for example, a student who attends, say, Mill High School, which is my alma no offense to anyone who visited or who attended other schools, but someone who's very talented and they get invited on a educational tour to go to Europe, but they come back and say, hey, the cost is $4,000. Well, that puts a tremendous burden on a single mom with 3 kids who may only make $25,000 or $30,000 per year. So our organization steps in and raises that money to be able to help that student go on that tour, and we reduce the financial burden onto the family. And so we've raised over $300,000 helping students over the last 4 or 5 years. And we typically do it with individual donations, but now we're starting to get donations from organizations like the Rotary Club that help our organization stay on the path towards success to continue helping those students stay on the path towards success. So that's our organization in a nutshell.
Okay, quickly, we will be meeting at Joe's Club, and that is, you are founder.
Yes, so a part of our organization also is to preserve the history and the legacy of things in the West End, and we've acquired the legendary Joe's Palm Room, and we're bringing it back to we're attempting to bring it back to what it was in its heyday, where all the influential people came through Joe's. And so we're fortunate enough to have a relationship with Rotary, and you will be having your next meeting at Joe's Palm Room. It's the 15th, and I think we'll go through the end of the year with a couple of gaps in there. So we welcome you. Our team is getting prepared and to welcome you at Joe's Palm Room.
So a quiz for everybody. Where are we meeting next week? Yay! Everybody gets an A. I'd like to welcome Luke Schmidt, president of LB Schmidt and Associates, past president of our club and one of the best darn past presidents we've ever had. Paul Harris, fellow +1 and chair of the Community Impact Committee, to the podium.
Thank you, President Walt. Appreciate it. Glad to be here today, and pleased to take just a couple of moments to provide everybody with a quick update on our fundraising campaign for the Rotary Club of Louisville's West Louisville Housing Initiative. To date, we've received just about $1.2 million in pledges, with more coming in, so that's a terrific number. Many of you, since we launched our club membership or fundraising drive, have participated. If anybody here today has made a pledge, please stand, because we'd like to recognize you for this. We're really making progress. Congratulations. To those of you not standing, your opportunity awaits. Just ask any of us for a pledge for. And now, I'd like to ask for your help on this. For the past several months, we've been working closely with Louisville Metro government, starting with Mayor Fisher, Metro Council President David James, and various members of the council on an allocation for our housing initiative. Denise Sears and I made a presentation to the Metro Council Committee of the Whole back on August 25th in support of our request for $1 million. Happy to tell you the response was very, very positive, and we now have a path forward for our request, and it's going to be presented soon to both the housing and budget committees within Metro. As this occurs, this will start in about 2.5 to 3 weeks. As this occurs, we've been advised that we need to demonstrate support from our members for this initiative. So today, we'd like to ask any and all Rotarians to volunteer to send an email of support to members of the Metro Council. I will provide you with the message and the email addresses. All you need to do is copy and paste. It's that simple. If you'd like to help us secure this $1 million grant, please see me right after the meeting today. We'll get you signed up. We won't have to do this until about 2 or 3 weeks, so I'd like to get the list up to date right now. And let me just close by saying, not only is this $1 million, add $200,000 to it, because our fiduciary partner, Park Community Credit Union, is matching 20% of everything we raise. So if we raise $1 million with Metro, that's really $1,200,000. And that support, and we're working hard to raise $5 million, will put 63 families in their first homes in West Louisville. So thanks again for your support, President Wall. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke, Denise, everybody that's working on that. So this $1.2 million from Metro, if it comes through, that's about 20 new homeowners, first-time homeowners to have houses in West Louisville. It's a big deal. Make an email or phone call. If you have a personal relationship with the Metro council member, please talk to them about it. This is something we all can get behind in West Louisville to help support our community. All right, now for the main event, I'd like to invite Doug Scott, Director of Development at the River Heritage Council Conservancy, to the podium to introduce today's speaker. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Walt. Thanks, everyone. With the honor of introducing my new boss, Susan Rademacher. Park making is the art of connecting people to place. Throughout her work, Susan's focus is on understanding the relationship of people to place, discerning how best to awaken and deepen that connection, and supporting that relationship so that everyone thrives. She began as a landscape journalist, rising editor-in-chief of Landscape Architecture magazine, and co-founding Garden Design magazine. In addition to her many articles and editorials, Susan has written or co-authored 5 books. She has also lectured widely, for example, from Harvard to UCLA, the Smithsonian to the Garden Club of America, and from American Institute of Architects to the International Urban Parks Forum. Susan then moved into the practice of park making in the early 1990s when she became executive director of the newly formed Louisville Olmsted Parks Conservancy. In her founding role, she also served as assistant director of Metro Parks. Significant projects included the Olmsted Parks Master Plan, Louisville Loop, and Floyd Forks Planning, Iroquois Amphitheater, Shawnee Sports Complex, Cherokee Park Scenic Loop, and Behringer Hill, and Louisville's Extreme Park. I didn't know about the amphitheater. I went to a concert. It's great. In 2007, Susan accepted the role of Parks Curator in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with the nonprofit Parks Conservancy. Over her 14-year tenure, she led a diverse array of restoration projects, including Mellon Square, Walled Garden, Westinghouse Memorial and Lily Pond, Allegheny Commons Fountain and Promenade, and again in August Wilson Park. Now, back home, Susan is leading River Heritage Conservancy and directing the development of Origin Park. Her passion is promoting the value of parks to build support and developing projects that benefit the community's public health, environmental quality, and local economy. Susan applies principles and practice developed over 3 decades on the cutting edge of parks and recreation. Hallmarks of her work include design excellence, constructability and craft, regenerative ecology, beauty and cultural expression, strategic partnerships, engaged communities, and long-term stewardship. Susan Rademacher, let's welcome her home.
Thank you, Doug. That was very nice. Greetings, everyone. It really is amazing to be back in Louisville among friends at Rotary Club. The last time I came to Rotary Club was in the 90s, and it was about the Olmsted Parks Project. So I'm standing here as someone who is the first to return to our region because of the creation of a park. And you all know, as Rotarians and people interested in the economy and culture of our regional community,
that parks play very important roles across the whole spectrum of human and environmental needs. I'm not going to go into those. I'm sure you've heard this many times. But a key thing is that people really, truly require parks and green space and access to water for their, not just physical health, not just their mental and spiritual health, but for their social health as well. And the places that we have been creating in this community over centuries now, all cumulatively improve our quality of place, quality of life, and desirability of being here. So I cannot tell you how happy I am after 14 years up the river in Pittsburgh to be back downriver, down home here in Louisville, working on what I think is the next transformative project for our region. Let's see, I have to pick out which screen I'm going to. Okay, maybe it's not. Okay, I'm not going to worry about that.
Just hit the forward, the arrow, and you need to point it towards my
Okay. All right, so Origin Park, let me just see how many people have heard something about Origin Park. A fair number, good, okay. So its roots go way back. Actually farther back than I realized, because my old friend and colleague David Burkholder actually created a concept for a park in this location so many years ago as a student. People's eyes have been on this place in very exploitive ways over time. And it is a place that holds millennia of human history and biological and geological origins for Louisville. The interesting thing about Origin Park is that it is the dark spot in the middle of 1.2 million people. We actually want it to stay the dark spot because it's a wild and woolly place. That's something really special within an urban core, to be able to hike into the depth of the woods and not really hear anything but the birds and the tree frogs is an amazing experience. And to encounter a rugged landscape that is constantly been going through transition and reclamation, I think is going to be a very interesting experience for people. The River Heritage Conservancy got its start with Kent Lanham of the Oval Foundation, Jim Walters of Bravura, and others looking at the greenway that connects Jeffersonville, Clarksville, and New Albany, and wondering how they could do a plan that would enhance the greenway. And as they were talking, they started looking out over the landfills and the car graveyards and the green woods of what is going to be Origin Park, and realized their aha moment, that's where we should be looking. We have the greenway. We now need a there. We need a destination, we need a core, we need a heart for green space and ecology and human beings in southern Indiana. So the Greenway was the beginning of this. The River Heritage Conservancy was established as a nonprofit partnership model in 2016. And since that establishment and the development of a master plan, we have acquired almost 3/4 of the acreage that we need for the entire 430-acre park. So you will see that we see the park as part of a continuum of open spaces and valued places that have been under creation in our community since 1891 with the arrival of Frederick Law Olmsted. Some of the spaces that people have become accustomed to and value highly, everything from the Olmsted Parks and Parkways to Waterfront Park. There are many on here many that are not represented on here that are part of this story. But as these places have come into being, the expectations for quality have risen, and the knowledge of the value of these places has also risen. So the investment is continuing to rise as well, which is very critical. We see Origin Park, which is at the upper point in these concentric circles, as the clasp in the necklace. You can see the Louisville Loop, the Olmsted Loop, the downtown loop that's not quite a loop yet, but can be. And then here at the top of this, pulling all of these threads together, you have Origin Park, which is then the jumping off point into the trail and green space network of southern Indiana. There are lots of reasons, as I mentioned before, for the creation of Origin Park. What I come back to is that what we want to do is honor our nature, both around us and in us, and we want to fix what's broken. By comparison's sake, you can see this large green area is the vision that the Conservancy created at its founding as to how all of the green spaces and public spaces along the river can be connected. We can make more than the sum of the parts. This also compares relative sizes. I don't really get into comparison of sizes because it's the experience that matters. But suffice it to say that like any regional park, Origin Park will function both for day-to-day use by people in the surrounding communities, for regional use by cyclists and recreationists who come to Origin Park or come through Origin Park, and by people who are coming from outside the region to experience the really unique urban wild that we're creating. Here you see how the park area is located within all these municipalities and has that potential to help link together our ever-growing system of green spaces. This image also reinforces that and points out a really amazing asset that we have. Along the entire Ohio River, there's only one place where there is no barge traffic, no commercial traffic. It's below the falls to New Albany. And that is the area that Origin Park fronts on. It has amazing whitewater opportunities, class 2 to 4 rapids. Olympic kayakers train there. Rescue teams from states throughout the eastern United States come there to do swift water rescue training. So it's already a place that's in the know for water sports and rescue enthusiasts. It's also just a source of magnificent awe and wonder. The power of the water coming through the dam, coming through the chutes, rolling over the rocks is manifested in this park's shorefront. And it's truly something that you have to go and experience for yourself. It's impossible to describe how dramatic it is and how it just kind of sweeps you up in the realization of human sort of hubris in a way. Our ability to exploit our resources, to create power grids, to create flyways, all of these energy movements across the landscape actually have been happening in Origin Park for over 10,000 years. So we know that, I might be getting ahead of myself. Wait a second. Okay. Oh, wonderful stuff in the park. Just what you would expect. I will say, just talking about the assets of Oregon and all the layers of value, wildlife and the ecological communities are first and foremost. We default in every decision that we make toward conservation. You know, parks are a very dynamic combination of conservation of nature and human recreation. And finding the right balance in any given landscape is the challenge of a good plan and a good design. In a large regional park, you have the chance to create many different kinds of experiences, and we want to provide that full range of experience of nature. Flying squirrels, the largest salamander, called the hellbender, in North America, lives under the rocks along Silver Creek. It's the only habitat they have. It's an incredible thing. There are lots of rare and unusual birds, and just many, many opportunities to improve our wildlife habitat, and to remember that we're urban wildlife too, in a way.
We need to belong together. We need to learn to respect each other and to live together. And we need to understand how our birds and insects and snakes and four-footed creatures all contribute to the environmental web of a healthy landscape, which can support a healthy populace. Doing these things. Having fun. We really want this park to be about discovery and adventure and exploration, but that also means the exhilaration of a moment of solitude deep in Buttonbush Woods. The Origin Park vision is exciting to me because it harks back to an original Olmstedian principle. Frederick Law Olmsted, in designing Central Park, pioneered the concept of, that he called separation of ways. And that meant that if you're walking in a park, you never have to cross a street. The cars or carriages are always in either going through tunnels underneath you, or you're going through a tunnel underneath the road. In Origin Park's plan, once you arrive in the park, whether you're in a car or on foot or bike or with a baby stroller or what have you, you have complete separation of the recreational path system from the road system. So complete safety. You don't have to worry that somebody's going to come zipping around the corner and you're going to have to deal with that, which I think is remarkable. The other thing about the plan for the park is that it's multi-layered. So it is resilient and still useful during flood season. Now, to go way back in time, as I mentioned, we have had 10,000 years of habitation here. It's well documented archaeologically. Our site is at once an archaeological treasure chest where you really pretty much can't dig anywhere without finding something of value. That means we have tremendous constraints in building this park, and we have a tremendous need to respect the archaic cultures and their descendant native cultures in the work that we're doing. We also know that this is a landscape that has been shaped over time from the glaciers receding, which really formed our landscape that we know today. The fault line of the falls, everything comes from water. Water defines this place. And the low point in the Ohio River that the falls created provided the opportunity for our native bison to migrate from the Great Plains through Illinois, through Vincennes, down to New Albany and what is now Clarksville, across the river, on down into Kentucky to Salt Licks, and then even further, in some cases, to Tennessee. So the Buffalo Trace runs directly through what is Origin Park. And in fact, we know that Native Americans would camp on top of Iroquois Park to watch for the dust clouds rising from the valley so that they would know when it was time to go down and begin their hunt. We have George Rogers Clark, a multifaceted story. George Rogers Clark had enslaved people at his homestead. We know that York, who went on the expedition with his brother William Clark, was the only black man on the expedition. We know that there's a settlement, or there was a settlement called Guinea Bottoms, which was a place where people who were escaping from enslavement and freed and indentured African Americans lived. So we have evidence of a settlement there. We have the flyways and the migratory routes that I mentioned. John James Audubon did his first bird sketch at the Falls of the Ohio. You're getting the picture here. Layers upon layers of meaning. The Underground Railroad, significant crossings at New Albany and into Clarksville. Shooting the rapids, you can see, that goes way back. The thrill of that big water has always attracted people. The American paddlefish, another unusual fish, which became the source of a substitute for Russian caviar during the 1917 revolution when we had an embargo against Russia. And there was actually a canning facility in what is now Origin Park. And then here's our levee that defines the outer rim of what the park vision is. Our focus is on the park from Silver Creek, which is the main creek that you can see letting out into the river, going eastward, because the land west of Silver Creek is in New Albany, and New Albany is developing their own park plans that will be very complementary. I mentioned the industrial use. Our site not only is an archaeological field, it is a brownfield. And when you put those two things together, you end up getting caught in the crosshairs of some interesting regulatory constraints. So that's another fun thing for us to learn about. Pollution to clean up from. The shoreline failing. The estimate is that as much as 300 feet of Indiana shoreline has been lost since the construction of the dam because of the flow. One of the outfalls sends a huge amount of water directly toward the Indiana shore. And so the Army Corps of Engineers has a concept called these bendway weirs. That image shows the result of the bendway weirs on the Mississippi River, as part of the solution. So we're awaiting federal funding to be approved for that to move forward. Our master plan for Origin Park, as I mentioned, is really largely about the landscape itself. It's about revealing all of these layers that I've talked about, including the agricultural history of the 20th century and the industrial history of extraction, and how do we reclaim these lands. What kinds of economies can we create to reuse some of these materials? We know that the Ohio River itself is very dynamic. We all know this. We also know that over the rest of this century, the amount of water is going to increase, is predicted to increase quite dramatically in the river. And so the park is really designed to be resilient and embracing of flood conditions. This little diagram, if you can watch this on the bottom of your screen, shows flood levels and how many days a year the park is inundated and to what degree. So you can see 3 days a year it's going to be this flooded. So we'll be shutting down and opening paths, but because we have these elevated pathways, we will have the ability for the park to be open, for people to come and in beautiful weather be on an elevated walkway along the Ohio River, but also in flood weather, to still be able to do that, to be able to be on an elevated trail through the beautiful woods and see paddlers beneath you, paddling through the wet woods. Industrial meadow, we want to honor that industrial past, all of the enterprise, all of the creation of wealth, as we are reclaiming that landscape. And we will also include a outdoor adventure center. This will be a ticketed facility, probably a subsidiary company to River Heritage Conservancy. The point of this is fun and to introduce people to nature, but it's also primarily to create an appropriate source of revenue generation to make this park self-sustaining. So it has been declared we're going to have a self-sustaining park. That is what everybody says. Getting there is a lot harder than it sounds. Because we're a partnership organization and we can be very innovative, we have multiple relationships with cities, we want to create multiple relationships with industry as well. We're interested in recycling materials from the landfills. We're interested in social venture employment. We're interested in jobs training. So we want to try to bring in social benefits beyond the direct benefits of parks, social benefits to our communities. And the impact of the Outdoor Adventure Center will not only be a significant source of financial support to sustain and maintain the park, but also a huge revenue boost, because it will be the only facility like this within a 3-hour radius, which goes to St. Louis, Nashville, Knoxville, Columbus, Ohio. That's a big area. And right now, if you want to do something like this, you'd have to drive to Charlotte, North Carolina, or you have to drive down to Birmingham, or go out to Colorado or Oklahoma. So this is going to be something spectacular. And then we have done our homework in terms of economic investment and the kind of
throw off that the park will do in terms of jobs, attraction, retention, tax increases, property tax value, sales, hotel nights, all that stuff. And then just to wrap up, I wanted to give you a glimpse of what we're doing now. So we have actually started building the park. When I came, and I was joined by my colleagues, Doug and Melissa, it was at a real inflection point in the Conservancy. The Conservancy had been working fairly quietly, behind the scenes, amassing land. Whoops, tells me my time is up. Amassing land, doing planning, developing some levels of support and partnership, especially with wonderful town of Clarksville public servants and government. But now we're at a point where we're building. And our phase one, which we're informally calling Origin 26, meaning we'll be finished with this first part of Origin Park in 2026. So that's not far off. We're going to be developing the lower right third of the park. So our first project is 141 acres. And it includes, let me go back for a second. It includes boardwalks and trails through what is really the heart and soul of the park, which is Buttonbush Woods. Almost 100 acres of wet woodland, so it's a very interesting ecological environment. We'll be building an event center, which will be the landing point for people coming to the park, a place again where we can begin to generate revenue through event rentals, host programming on this beautiful spot overlooking the Ohio River. And under construction right now is our Blueway, and so we're building 2 paddling put-ins along Silver Creek, and this one that you see closest to the mouth of the Ohio will be finished this fall. So we'll be probably doing a soft opening and then really ramping up for operations starting in the spring. So things are happening very quickly, and we are thrilled to be able to share with you some of the story, some of our vision for how we want to do it. We really want this park to be a uniquely wonderful new addition to the incredible heritage that we have of parks and green space in our region. We want it to be worthy of the Olmsted Parks and the parklands. We want to learn from all of those examples, and we want to create a model that is truly community partnered and self-sufficient. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to questions.
Rotarians, please make your way to the microphone if you have questions. We've got time for about 5 minutes worth. I'll start off with saying I had a meeting back here in the back earlier, and I saw 2 eagles in this tree. I don't know if there's the same eagle twice or but anyway, there were 2 at 2 different times. Pretty cool. I've never seen a bald eagle on the Ohio River in 25 years. So that, and then you were talking about the Hellbender. So if y'all remember Ward Wilson, I just went blank, our Waterways Alliance. Ward Wilson, I did say it right. All right, came, and he talked about the Hellbender, because the Hellbender is kind of a thermometer, a barometer of how healthy the water is. So if you've got those out there. So what could somebody expect the wildlife to look like 10 years from now because of what your work in the park is doing?
So 10 years from now, the wildlife population will be larger. It will be more diverse. There will be defined niches for certain types of wildlife. So for instance, the prothonotary warbler is a very special bird that overwinters in Mexico, stops in Origin Park on its way north, and is a highly valued bird. We have one little habitat area that it loves. What we'll be doing is stabilizing that and actually enlarging that habitat to continue supporting and attracting that. So we're targeting specific wildlife that we really want to be supportive of. We're also being very careful with our park lighting. So we just came from a lighting meeting this morning, and cutoff lights, dark sky initiative, default to dark. just remember, this is a place that should stay dark for the health of the wildlife in the landscape. So using lighting very specifically in areas where we have people and cars, that sort of thing. But it's always defaulting to the power of the water and defaulting to the health of the landscape. Those are our driving factors. Thanks.
David?
Yes.
Susan, as you know, this has been a passion of mine for 55 years. And I'm so glad you're back in town. I took a grandson down to the falls in June and saw both the red fox and the bald eagle. It's easy to go down there. What my concern is, I know the Clark cabin was burned, and I don't know whether it's salvageable or going to rebuild it, but it's kind of very historic, and I'd like to see something happen to it.
Thank you, Dave. The Clark cabin is really interesting. Originally, the location of the cabin was on a piece of land that is now in the river. So the cabin that was at the state park site, which is part of the Falls of the Ohio State Park, was a cabin from the same era, sourced from southern Indiana, I think funded by the Oval Foundation. I have to get that little plug in. And the state Department of Natural Resources in Indiana has hired a firm called Land Story to do a master plan for the Falls of the Ohio State Park, including the Clark cabin site. They have just started, as of last week, public listening sessions. And so I would expect that we will all see plans emerging. I think they got a message from those first public listening sessions that while it might be stylish to memorialize the cabin in some more abstract way, people really want to see a cabin there again. That's what makes that special and gives you the sense of, oh my gosh, I could be looking through pioneer's eyes. And that's what people want. So I'm expecting that's the way it'll go. But keep an eye on the progress of that planning effort.
Taller. Hi, Susan. I'm Cynthia Miles Brown, the signer on Dixie. I am super excited about this project. It was, and we originally heard about the Conservancy project, it's been 2 years ago, whatever it was. Couple questions. One, the adventure park. After watching the flooding video, where exactly is that going? Is it going outside of the park? And it's going to be, I just worry about the entertainment value and the people and the noise and which is wonderful to have that revenue stream. But is it going to kind of be separated from the park itself, especially with all the flood zones?
Yeah, that's a really important question. And it pertains to anything we're doing. So the event center too, we're really thinking hard about impact on neighboring communities and in terms of light, sound, traffic. The Outdoor Adventure Center will be placed along Brown Station Way, which is the highway that connects Jeffersonville, Clarksville, and New Albany. And it parallels the flood wall, the levee. And the ground that it will be on is the highest ground in the Origin Park footprint. It floods the least, and I'm sure that as we're designing that will be our second phase of the park. So right now we're focused on our Origin 26, but while we're building that out, we'll be designing and raising money for Origin 30 or whatever it will be. And we'll have to design in, lots of safety controls and measures related to flooding. But it was positioned on high ground specifically to avoid that problem.
Susan, thanks for your presentation. Tom Kremens here. I'm glad you mentioned the Hellbender, and Walt gave an amen to that. I saw a presentation 3 months ago about how biologists have, I believe I have this right, they have figured out a way to breed it in captivity and then return it to the wild. And I think I know that one of their first releases happened very recently. I just wondered if you're familiar with that, and if you have any more information about it.
Well, thank you for making me familiar with it. It's very exciting. I think it's something that we'll want to follow up with our ecologists and wildlife biologists on. We are excited about the
improvement of Silver Creek as the dangerous low-head dams are removed by the state of Indiana in Silver Creek. Water levels will reset, the banks will become healthier, and the aquatic environment for wildlife will improve tremendously. And so maybe we can be a kind of prime spot, poster child for the release of these bred in captivity salamanders. That would be super cool.
Susan Neville Blakemore. I'm really intrigued with the flooding feature of the park. And I could see not that long ago that that would have been considered a detriment. Don't build a park here. If we're going to build a park, build a dam, keep the water out. So I think it's really a brilliant insight to have that be a feature. So my question is twofold. What was the process to come up with that idea? And how it was like, and do any other parks have that? Again, where something would normally be a detriment is actually going to become an asset. I think it's just brilliant.
Yes, and I really credit the Olin design firm. I should have mentioned them. Olin out of Philadelphia and New York is our lead landscape architecture firm. Joseph & Joseph with Bravura is our lead architecture firm. And it was in the master planning effort that the concept of embracing, meeting the land where it is, meeting the water where it is, became kind of something that you can't argue with. I mean, that's a mighty river. Its power is, we're no match for its power. We have to learn how to live with it. We need to learn how to live with climate change. This park is going to give us a chance to practice that, to adapt over time, to manage our ecological systems toward health, even as they're changing. That's what it's all about. And so it's a very dynamic landscape. And if we tried to still that somehow, I think we'd rip the heart out of it. It's that wild, rugged, what our designers call raw awe, that is the characteristic of this place. And within that, there are moments of tranquility and great beauty, and moments of incredible, massive scale of human build. But the dynamism and the unexpected qualities of this landscape, I think, are what will keep people coming back and what will really help them bond with nature as it truly is.
Thank you, Susan. And one thing I didn't mention, but did want to, when the slides were going through and you showed the boardwalks, I know some of us are getting older and clumsy, and I've got a long way to fall, folks. Anyway, I just went to Acadia, and they had so many boardwalks. Some of them were very narrow, and some of them were broad, but it made walking so much easier that I looked forward to it. And I've been amazed at the detail of the wildlife that you've been talking about, and the detail of the park. I mean, it just gave me a lot of confidence that you're doing the right thing, so keep that up. So in honor of being here today, Susan, the Rotary Club of Louisville is making a $500 contribution in your name to our West Louisville Housing Initiative. So we want to thank you for that and support that. And one last thing, I know everybody's been waiting for what is it called? The door prizes. Thanks, Greg. So we got door prizes, and Susan's going to pull out. Oh yeah, you get to pull it. Can't pull out your own. And you're going to ask me, what's this for? Well, it's dinner for two at Joe's Palm Room anytime that we're there for our lunch on Rotary. We want you to bring yourself and another Rotarian. So here we go. 487-321. 487-321. There we go. I can't see who it is, but they're in the back. Still can't see. All right. Oh, there we go. All good. Thanks. All right. See Delane for that. Thank you, Susan. We've got just a couple more things. I'm going to get us out of here at 1:02. So anyway, next week where are we meeting? Joe's Palm Room. All right. So it's 1821 West Jefferson. Please bring another Rotarian with you. We want to have a more than full house. because it's our first time at Joe's, but also because we have Senate candidate Charles Booker there. It's an important meeting for Rotary because we've got their Senate candidate there, but we're coming to West Louisville. We're putting our money where our mouth is, and we're moving our club meetings to West Louisville so we can support all the great things going there. We're glad that Butch is going to be there to welcome us, so go ahead. It's $25. We're going to have creamy pesto pasta with chicken, sauteed root vegetables, Caesar salad rolls, assorted pastry bars on our buffet there. So please, scan your code on your table, bring a guest, come on down. I've got another announcement I need to make, and I can't think of what it is. Here we go. We've got our phone and text-a-thon. We just hot off the presses on September 19th. Going to be calling for the West Louisville Housing Initiative. So if anybody wants to be at Walt's house to have a phone and text-a-thon, we'll have fun and do good on September 19th. You'll hear about that. Now, Walt's words of wisdom about gardening, of course. Live in each season as it passes. Breathe the air, drink the drink, taste the fruit, and resign yourself to the influence of the earth. Let us be grateful to the people who make us happy. They are the charming gardeners who make our own souls blossom. And this one was one of my favorites, and I just happened to read it. It was in the preface to one of Cookie Roberts' books, right before her husband died. And she said, "Every day he makes me happy. Many days he brings me flowers." Fellas, I'm giving you a hint. Look deep into nature, and then you will understand everything better. And then one of my favorites, new one to me, we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. Have a great day. Wonderful meeting. Thanks for being here. We are adjourned. Rotary guests that want to be about membership, come down here and we need to give a round of applause for Sabre. We'll do that next time. Thank you.